Right, 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 madam. Fine. Okay, good morning, students. Now we will continue with the chapter cell cycle and cell division. Okay, so in the previous sessions, we have completed up to the chapter anatomy of flowering plants. Now we'll continue with this chapter, cell cycle and cell division. Okay, so what is cell cycle? It is nothing but the sequence of events by which a cell duplicates its genome, synthesizes the other constituents of cells, and eventually divides into two daughter cells. This entire sequence is called as cell cycle. Okay, and every cell has to undergo this cell cycle. Okay, and cell division, of course, is a very important process in all living organisms. Okay, so during the division of cell, compulsorily DNA must replicate, cell has to undergo growth. Okay, and all these processes together will occur in a coordinated manner or a coordinated fashion to ensure correct division of DNA among the daughter or the progeny cells, which should contain the intact genomes. Okay, so this sequence is referred to as cell cycle. Okay, so and in different, the cell cycle is divided into different phases, and each phase is designed for some of the important specific functions. Okay, so as like DNA synthesis occurs in one of the specific stages of cell division, but distribution of chromosome in cells occur in complex series of events during cell division. Okay, so and the duration of cell cycle also differs among different organisms. For example, if you take human beings, a typical human cell divides once in approximately 24 hours, which may vary in different organisms and even different parts of our body also. Another example, if you take yeast, it takes nearly about 90 minutes to complete the cell division process. Okay. So now let us come to the phases of cell cycle. Okay, so if you carefully look at the diagram which is displayed on your slide, okay, you can see that the entire cell cycle is divided into two basic phases. Okay, the first one is called as the interphase and the second one is known as the M phase. Okay, so what is this interphase? Interphase is nothing but it is the phase between two successive M phase, you can say. It is the phase which takes nearly about 95% of the time of a cell cycle, and this phase is known as resting phase. Okay, but you should not get confused why it is called resting phase, because the cell actually is not resting during this phase, but during this phase the cell is metabolically very active and it is preparing itself for the nuclear division by cell growth. Okay, so now what is M phase? Now if you just look at the diagram here, so you can see the interface is covering nearly 90 to 95% of the cell cycle, and it is further divided into different phases, students. Okay, I'll come to that, don't worry. Now let me tell you what is M phase. M phase is nothing but it is the phase that starts with actually nuclear division, which is corresponding to the separation of daughter cells. Okay, or in other words, I can say it is the phase where the actual cell division or mitosis occurs. It starts with karyokinesis, duplication of chromosome, and end with cytokinesis or division of the cell matrix. So in other words, what you have to follow is M phase is one that involves karyokinesis and cytokinesis. Okay, right. So now if you see, M phase will take a very small portion of the cell cycle, nearly about 5% of the total time of the cell cycle. Okay, and now let me tell you what are the further subphases of this interface. Okay, children. So interface is further divided into three subphases, as you can see on your slide. The first one is called as the G1 phase, which is also known as the gap 1 phase, okay, or sometimes it is also called as the post mitotic phase. The second phase is called as the S phase, also called as the synthesis phase, okay, and the third and the last phase is known as the G2 phase, also referred to as the gap 2 phase, okay, and also it is called as the pre-mitotic gap phase or pre-mitotic growth phase, okay. So now what are the events that happen during the G1S and G2 phases? Let us quickly glance, okay. So G1 phase represents the interval between mitosis and initiation of DNA replication, and this is the phase which is in which the cell is metabolically active, continuously grows, but only thing is it is not at all replicating its DNA. Cell is only dividing, I mean cell is only growing in size. Cell is synthesizing different types of RNA. Cell is synthesizing different types of proteins, okay. Even the many of the enzymes for replication are synthesized during this phase, like polymerases, okay. So this is called as the G1 phase, and compared to the G2 phase, it usually takes a longer time. Now let us come to the second phase, that is the synthetic phase or the S phase. S phase is the period that marks during which DNA synthesis or actual replication of DNA occurs. And during this time, you have to understand the amount of the DNA per cell doubles. Okay, children, the amount gets doubled in this phase. But one more thing, what is to be stressed here is, okay, the chromosome number does not change. There is no increase in the chromosome number. If the cell is a diploid cell, it remains as a diploid cell. Okay, if it has 2n number of chromosomes, even after S phase, it has the same 2n number of chromosomes. Only thing is there is a change in the content of DNA, but not in the chromosome number. Okay. Now the last is the G2 phase. So what is this G2 phase? Okay, so G2 phase is the phase which is also called as growth phase, during which protein is synthesized and it is preparing itself for mitosis. Okay, one thing I would like to tell here, let me go back to the S phase. S phase is also known for the synthesis of histone proteins, students, and G2 phase is the phase where specific tubulin proteins, that is the proteins responsible for spindle fiber formation, are synthesized during this phase. Okay, so these are the three different phases. One more thing here to be understood is the G0 phase of the cell cycle. So what is this G0 phase? In adult animals, some cells which do not divide or may divide occasionally, these cells do not divide further and exit the G1 phase to enter into an inactive. The exit stage is called as the quiescent stage or the G0 stage of the cell cycle, and cells in this stage remains metabolically active. It doesn't mean that metabolism is stopped. Metabolism is active, but they don't proliferate or they don't divide unless or until there is such utmost requirement. Okay, so and differentiation can be permanent, differentiation can be temporary also. Some cells may go back, re-enter the cell cycle, which are temporarily differentiated. Some cells may not. Okay, so this phase is called as the G0 phase of the cell cycle. Now let us come to the M phase. So as I said, M here stands for mitosis. Okay, so this is the most important phase of the cell cycle, where actually the cell is distributing its genetic material among the progeny cells. Okay, so this mitosis, let us come to the first type of cell division here, that is nothing but the mitosis. Okay, so what is mitosis? Mitotic cell division is also called as equational cell division. Why? You all know that very well, because the number of chromosomes remains same in parental as well as the progeny cells. There are different phases of mitosis, like as you can recall, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Okay, so students, what is this prophase? Prophase is the first stage of mitosis, which follows the S phase and the G2 phase, okay, of interphase. And in the prophase, there are certain events which takes place. For example, if you take initiation of condensation of chromosomal material occurs, movement of centrioles towards the opposite poles of the cells. At the end of the prophase, endoplasmic reticulum, nuclear membrane, Golgi complex disappears. Okay, so these are the most important events that occur during the prophase. One more thing here is, during prophase, chromosomes can be seen as composed of two chromatids which are attached together at the centromere. Okay, and this two chromatids thing has occurred. Other two chromatids have formed during the S phase when the DNA has replicated, and now they are having in prophase two chromatids which are attached to the centromere. Okay, so and at the end of prophase, as I said, you cell organelles usually will be disappeared. Okay, so these are the events of prophase. Coming to the metaphase, metaphase starts with complete disappearance of the nuclear membrane. There is complete disintegration of the nuclear membrane, which is marking the beginning of metaphase. Okay, and hence the chromosomes will spread throughout the cytoplasm of this cell here. Okay, during the metaphase, and this stage is the most suitable stage for study of morphology of chromosomes. Okay, and what are the events? Let us see. Condensation of chromosomal material is into compact and distinct chromosomes made up of two sister chromatids attached with spindle fibers with respective kinetochores can be visible during this phase, and chromosomes will arrange themselves at the center of the cell, which is called as metaphasic plate. The plane of alignment of chromosome at metaphase is referred to as metaphasic plate. And the key events that occur, as I said, you spindle fibers will attach to the kinetochores, and chromosomes are moved to spindle equator and align themselves on the equatorial plate. So these are the events of metaphasic stage. Coming to the next phase, that is anaphase. So anaphase is the phase during which, during the beginning of the anaphase, each chromosome which is arranged at the metaphasic plate is split simultaneously. This is very, very important event of the mitosis. Splitting of each chromosome at the centromere into two sister chromatids occur during the anaphase, and this event is responsible for the equal distribution of chromosome to the two daughter cells, and hence we say that mitosis is the equational division. Okay, right. So and each chromosome during this phase moves away from the equatorial plate, and the centromere of these will means from the centromere they will move with the help of the centromere. Centromere of each chromosome is towards the pole, and hence at the leading stage with the arms will be trailing behind. Okay, so these are the events that happen during the anaphase. Chromosomes, daughter chromosomes, you say, they begin to move towards the opposite poles. Okay, now we have the last stage, that is important. Losing the identity means what? Chromosomes here start to undergo decondensation. Okay, condensation has occurred during the prophase. Now they lose their identity, means decondensation begins here, hence they lose their individuality. The nuclear membrane reassembles around the chromosomal clusters, and there will be reappearance of a membrane bound organelles like nucleolus, nuclei, etc., around the chromosome clusters. So these are the events that happen during the telophase of mitosis. Now, once the karyokinesis is completed, so as I said, the karyokinesis will involve all this pro, meta, ana, and telophase. Then the cell has to take up the next event, that is nothing but cytokinesis. So what is cytokinesis? It is nothing but the division of cytoplasm of a cell after karyokinesis into two daughter cells. Okay, and the mode of cytokinesis differs dramatically in plant as well as in animal cells. Okay, so what happens in animal cells? In animal cell, basically the method is different. What happens is, in animal cells, cytokinesis is achieved by the appearance of a furrow in the plasma membrane. Very important. There will be an appearance of furrow in the plasma membrane, and that furrow will deepen and ultimately join in the center, which divides the cell cytoplasm into two. Okay, so what did I say? There will be a formation of furrow which develops in the plasma membrane. The furrow will grow or inwardly, it deepens, and ultimately it joins in the center, dividing the cell cytoplasm into two components. Okay, so this is the appearance of furrow or the formation of furrow. Whereas in plant cells, the method is different. In plant cells, wall formation starts at the center and grows outward to meet the lateral walls. Okay, so what did I say? The wall formation starts or begins in the center of the cell, and it grows outwardly to meet the existing lateral walls. Okay, and the formation of new cell wall begins with the formation of a precursor. In plant cells, the cytokinesis happens with the formation of a precursor that is called as cell plate, and that that cell plate, you should know, it represents the middle lamella between two adjacent cells. Very important, cell plate formation occurs, and that cell plate represents the middle lamella which is present between the two adjacent cells. Okay, so these are the differences between plant and animal cell cytokinesis. I hope you all have followed. Okay. Okay, so now let us come to the next part, that is nothing but significance of mitosis. So children, as you all know, mitosis has lot significance. Okay, so mitosis, as you know, equational division, and it is usually restricted to the diploid cells. Okay, but it doesn't mean it doesn't occur in the haploid. It also occurs, but usually diploid cells. In some lower plants and in some insects also, haploid cells also can divide by the process of mitosis. Okay, so significance involves what? It produces diploid daughter cells with identical genetic complement. This is very important. It restores the genetic information as it is. This is the one major significance of mitosis. Okay. Second one is it helps in the repair of cells, especially in lining of the gut and blood cells. Okay. So cell repair is a very important function. Okay. Without cell repair, it is very difficult for an organism to survive. Okay. So cell repair is a part of life. So which division is basically responsible is mitosis is responsible, particularly in different parts of the body, student, particularly in the upper layer of epidermis, cells of the lining of the gut, blood cells, which will be constantly replaced in our body at regular intervals. And which division is responsible means mitosis. Okay, and if you talk about the plant and animal cell, I mean plant cells. In plant cells, mitotic divisions usually occur in the meristematic tissue, like if you take apical meristem or lateral meristem. Okay, and this results in continuous growth of the plants throughout their life, because we know that in plants division occurs throughout their life. Okay, and one more thing here to be noted is multicellular organisms grow due to which division means due to the process of mitosis. Okay, now let us come to the next type of cell division, that is nothing but meiosis. It's also called as the reduction division. Okay, so cell division, why it is called reduction? Because the daughter cells will be receiving the half the number of chromosomes as compared to the parent cells. That's why it is reduction. And this meiosis is one which is responsible for the production of haploid phase in the life cycle of sexually reproducing organisms. Okay, so there are different phases in which are involved in the meiosis. Okay, it involves the following events. There will be two sequential cycles of nuclear and cell division called meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, but single cycle of DNA replication. Very important here. Okay, so there will be two sequential cycles of nuclear and cell division called as meiosis 1 and 2. That means 2 times karyokinesis, 2 times cytokinesis occur, but replication occurs only once. Second one is it involves pairing of homologous chromosomes. Very important. Homologous chromosomes are paired, and ultimately they undergo recombination during meiosis, which you don't find in case of mitosis. Okay, and at the end of the meiosis, you find there will be formation of four haploid cells which are formed at the end of meiosis 2. Okay, whereas in mitosis you can see that there will be formation of two cells, two daughter cells. Here you get four haploid cells, and one very important thing is these four haploid cells are genetically different from each other. Very important point, all these four are genetically different from each other. Okay, so these are the major events which are undergoing under meiosis. So meiosis 1 and 2, as I said, there are two types. So each will involve the phases like prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1. Similarly, we have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase 2 for meiosis 2. One thing here is in prophase 1 there are substages. Prophase 1 is divided into 5 substages, that is leptotene, zygote, pakitine, diplotene, and diakinesis. Okay, now let us go to these events. So here you should stress that the prophase, and this phase is very important because majority of the important events occur during this phase. Then what are those events? Is pairing of homologous chromosomes. Okay, the prophase one, and hence it takes a greater time as compared to the other events. Okay, now let us come to the events which are things that occur during each of these phases. So during leptotene stage, which is the first stage, leptotene stage, the chromosomes become gradually visible under, if you see under microscope, you can see them clearly visible, and compaction of the chromosome continues. Okay, Okay, they are undergoing the process of condensation, and this process, a compaction of chromosome continues phase, and phase, that is zygote. So here one thing you should know, leptos means what? Leptotene meaning here is thin threads. You can see the chromosome as thin thread. They're still not undergone complete compaction. It is going on. Okay. And now in zygotine, what happens? Okay. In zygotine, chromosome starts pairing together. Okay. And this process is called as synapsis. Very important. Pairing of homologous chromosomes begins in zygotine. Process is called as synapsis. Okay. And this paired chromosomes are called as homologous chromosomes. You must be knowing what is homologous chromosomes. I need not go into detail here. Chromosomes which are having similar set of genes. Okay, in simple words I can say these are called as homologous chromosomes. And in this phase, you should also know that chromosome synapsis is accompanied by formation of a complex structure which is called a synaptonymal complex. Okay, there is a formation of complex that is called a synaptonymal complex, and this synaptonymal complex is nothing but ribonucleoprotein complex. Okay, that is participating in formation of this what do you say, pair. Okay, and this complex formed by the pair of synapse homologous chromosome, and this complex will lead to the formation of a structure that is called as bivalent or tetrad. What did I say? There is a formation of bivalent and tetrad. Okay, so what is bivalent? Bivalent is nothing but each bivalent is consisting of two chromosomes, students. Okay, each bivalent has two chromosomes and each chromosome has two chromatids. Hence, this structure is called as tetrad because there are four chromatids there. Okay, so a number of bivalents will be always equal to half the number of total number of chromosomes in a cell. Now let us go to the next stage, that is Pachytene stage. In Pachytene stage, crossing over occurs between the non-sister chromatids. Okay, and this crossing over is processed by a process that is called by an enzyme that is called as recombinase. And diplotin is the stage which is recognized by the dissolution of synaptonymal complex. Okay, and this tendency, and when this synaptonymal complex dissolves, that there is a tendency of chromosomes, the bivalents to separate. They begin to separate, but except at a particular point, that point or that site is called as chiasmata. Okay, and these are the X-like structures called as chiasmata, and these are the regions where the chromosomes are still attached. Okay, and this diplotin stage can be very much prolonging. It can take nearly months or years. If you take many different examples, particularly oocytes of certain vertebrates, in the cells are restricted, or the cells are what do you say, halted in the diplotin phase, which may take a lot of time. Okay, and last phase is dikinesis phase, and dikinesis phase is marked by the terminalization of the chiasmata. Okay, very important, terminalization of chiasmata. Okay, during this phase the chromosomes will be completely condensed. Very important point, they undergo complete condensation, they are fully condensed, and the spindle will be assembled to prepare the chromosomes for separation. Okay, and by the end of dikinesis you can see that nucleolus will disappear, nuclear envelope will also break down, and dikinesis will ultimately represent a stage where metaphase can be entered. Okay, and now we have events like metaphase 1. So metaphase 1 is similar only, as I said, the events of in mitosis. Here the main difference you have to remember is bivalent will align themselves on the equatorial plate. In mitosis, single chromosomes were there, but now they are not single, they are in pairs. They align at the equatorial plate. Okay, with the help of this kinetochores, and microtubules will form the opposite poles of the spindle, get attached to the pair of homologous chromosomes. Okay, and this plate is called as double equatorial or double metaphasic plate. There in mitosis we simply call as metaphasic plate. Here it is double metaphasic plate. Anaphase 1, very important. Anaphase 1 is the phase in which the homologous chromosomes separate and sister chromatids remain associated at their centromeres. What is the meaning of this? This is a very, very important stage. In anaphase 1, splitting of centromere does not occur. As we have seen in case of mitosis, I told in mitosis anaphase, splitting of centromere occurs. Here in anaphase 1, there is no splitting of centromere, and that is responsible for the actual reduction in chromosome number. Okay, last one we have telophase 1. In telophase 1, the same event, nuclear membrane nucleolus will reappear, cytokinesis follows, and now after completing meiosis 1, there is a stage that results for certain time, that's called as interkinesis. It's a short-lived stage. Okay, and which will be followed by prophase 2 after cytokinesis. Cytokinesis can be there or may not be there in different cells. Depending upon that, we have two types of meiosis: simultaneous or successive meiosis. Okay, so now when you come to meiosis 2, same events are there like prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase and telophase 2, and meiosis 2 is exactly similar to that of mitosis. That's why I will not go into much details here. It is exactly similar to that of mitosis. Now the last part here is significance of meiosis. So we all know what is the significance. Meiosis forms the gametes that are essential for sexual reproduction, and crossing over introduces new recombination of traits, and meiosis helps in maintenance of chromosome number of sexually reproducing organisms, and it also provides evidence of basic relationships among the organisms. Okay, so students, with this now we had a glance on the chapter that is cell cycle and cell division. Hope you all have just recalled the important things. Okay, and now we'll go to the next chapter of our syllabus, that is nothing but the chapter biomolecules. Okay, now what are these biomolecules? Okay, so if you just look at the definition of your NCRT, all the carbon compounds that we see, that we get from living tissue, are together referred to as what? Biomolecules. Okay, and there is a method that is described in your textbook how to segregate or how to separate these biomolecules, extracting it from a living tissue, let it be a plant material or animal material. Okay, there's a simple experiment explained, that is using the trichloroacetic acid, using a mortar and pestle, grinding the tissue, and just you are fractionating. After fractionating, you get two fractions there. If you just recall, one is called as the acid soluble pool, okay, and another one is called as the acid insoluble pool. So what is this acid soluble pool? Acid soluble pool is one which is consisting of micromolecules, okay, for example, like sugar, amino acids, nucleosides, etc., etc., whose molecular weight will range from around 18 to around 800 daltons. Okay, and one more fraction we have, that is nothing but the acid insoluble pool, that is which is consisting of the biomacromolecules, where only you find majorly four types of organic compound, that is proteins, nucleic acids, polysaccharides and lipids. And these classes of compounds, with the exception of lipids, have molecular weights in the range of 10,000 daltons and above. Okay, so you should know that lipids are not strictly macromolecules, but even though they separate in the acid soluble pool, because of their hydrophobic nature, they don't dissolve in water. That's the reason they separate in this fraction, but actually they are not true macromolecules. Okay, so these are the things here. And if you just compare, if you go for a comparison of elements present in non-living and living matter, that is a table that is displayed in your textbook. The same thing is displayed on the slide here. If you take a human body basically consisting of maximum percentage of oxygen, followed by carbon, and etc., and so and so. Similarly, if you take Earth's crust, maximum is again by oxygen, that is 46.6%, followed by the other elements. Similarly, we have one more table where representative inorganic constituents of living tissues are displayed, which majorly constitute sodium, potassium, calcium, etc., etc. Now moving ahead, as I said you, except lipids, macromolecules are formed by polymerization of subunits, which are called as monomers. Okay. Now how these monomers are linked to each other? Nature of bond linking monomers in polymer. There are different types of bonds, children, if you just recall. The one of the major bonds is peptide bond. So what is this peptide bond? Peptide bonds are present in proteins, which are polymers of amino acids. Okay. And how it is formed? It is formed by dehydration synthesis. It is formed by the carboxylic group of one amino acid and amino group of the next amino acid, and there is elimination of water molecule. So this is for proteins. We have one more bond that's called as the phosphodiester bond. What is this phosphodiester bond? Which is present in nucleic acids. Phosphate molecule links the 3 carbon of the sugar of one nucleoside to the 5 carbon of the sugar to the next nucleoside, and then there will be again release of water molecule and to form a phosphodiester bond, which are found in nucleic acids. Similarly, we have a glycosidic bond which is present in polysaccharides, where monosaccharides are linked by dehydration synthesis again. Okay, there will be linkage between two carbon atoms of two adjacent monosaccharides. Okay, so these are the different bonds you must remember and where they are present. So this is a diagrammatic representation of various biomolecules, like you can see sugars, amino acids. 3 different simple amino acids are given, like glycine, alanine, serine, etc. Lipid structures are given, nucleosides like even adenine, uracil, nucleosides, nucleotides, purine, pyrimidines. This is a You can just have a glance in your textbook also. Now, without wasting time, I will come to the classification of various biomolecules. Okay, first one I would just like to highlight here the carbohydrates. Okay, so what are these carbohydrates? You can see a simple classification given here in this table. Carbohydrates are those which are basically consisting of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay, and they are considered to be as aldoses or ketoses. Okay, and these carbohydrates are broadly divided into three major categories: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are of different types. You can see trioses. They can be trioses having three carbons, glyceraldehyde, tetroses, pentoses, hexoses, heptoses. Okay, respective examples are quoted like erythrose, ribose, glucose for hexose, etc., etc. Similarly, we have oligosaccharides like disaccharides and trisaccharides. Disaccharides, sucrose, which is made up of glucose and fructose; maltose, made up of glucose and glucose, okay, by glycosidic linkages. Similarly, we have trisaccharides like raffinose is an example. And you should know that these mono and oligosaccharides are the biomicromolecules, and when you come to the acid insoluble fraction, we have biomacromolecules like polysaccharides, and you can divide them into different ways. You can divide them as structural polysaccharides like cellulose as an example, or you can divide them into storage polysaccharide like starch or inulin is an example. Okay, you can even divide carbohydrates in this fashion also. Okay, where monosaccharides you can divide in the form of aldoses and ketoses depending upon the nature of reactive group. Disaccharides you can divide reducing and non-reducing sugars, okay, like maltose, lactose are reducing, non-reducing sucrose. Oligosaccharides, maltose. Polysaccharides can be divided into homo and hetero types, okay, like starch and cellulose are homo, hetero, heparin is an example. Okay, so different polysaccharides are mentioned in your textbook. Majorly stress is given to cellulose and starch. Okay, with structure representation of cellulose and starch, diagrammatic representation is given. I'm sorry, glycogen and starch is represented in your textbook. Okay, and you should know that cellulose is a homopolymer which is made up of glucose monomers. Similarly, starch also is a homopolymer. Inulin is a polymer of fructose, also mentioned in the textbook. Okay, and they give different colors with iodine, like starch gives blue color. Cellulose does not give any color because it does not contain halices, and hence it cannot hold iodine. Okay, and if there are different modified sugars also mentioned like glucosamine, n-acetyl, galactosamine, etc. Chitin is also mentioned in the textbook, so you should pay attention to these things also which are mentioned in your textbook NCRT. Okay, now let us come to the next category of biomolecule, student, that is amino acids and proteins. So what are amino acids? Amino acids are organic compounds containing an amino group and an acidic group as substituents on the same carbon and the alpha carbon, what we call, and in simple words you can call them as substituted methanes. Okay, and these proteins are the polypeptide chains or the polymers of amino acids. In other words, there are 20 types of amino acids, as you know, which can be joined together by peptide bonds between amino and the carboxylic group. An important thing what you should remember is amino acids can act as Ritter ions. Okay, the reaction is shown here. You can see they act or they behave as Ritter ionic forms as and base also, depending upon properties of amino acids will of proteins basically depend on the nature of amino acids, and of course depend on the nature of the functional group. Okay, and based on the number of amino and carboxyl groups, the amino acids you can divide them as acidic amino acids, example glutamic acid; basic like lysine; neutral like valine, etc. Similarly, we have aromatic amino acids. Similarly, we have alcoholic amino acids, etc., etc. And this table depicts the functions of different proteins like collagen, trypsin, insulin, etc. So this is about amino acids and proteins. So structure of proteins I will just highlight here. You have already studied the protein structure, can be studied under different headings like primary structure of protein, secondary structure of protein, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure of proteins. Okay, so primary is the basic structure in which number of polypeptides are involved having sequence of amino acids, a linear chain, students. Okay, first amino acid is called N terminal and the last one is called C terminal. Secondary structure will form a helix. Usually there are three categories in that, like alpha helix, beta pleated, collagen. Okay, Okay, and tertiary structure, the protein chain is folded upon itself like a hollow ball. Okay, and there are different bonds participating here, like hydrogen bonds will be there, disulfide hydrogen bonds, disulfide bonds will be there, van der Waals forces will be there, hydrophobic interaction, multiple bondings are responsible to hold the tertiary structure. Quaternary structure, each polypeptide will have its own tertiary structure, and many polypeptides will contribute to form the quaternary structure. And these are the diagrammatic representation which are taken from your book itself. Moving ahead, now we have lipids. Okay, as our next heading, lipids are generally water insoluble. They could be simple fatty acids. And fatty acid is one which is carboxyl group, which is attached to an R group. R group can be anything. It can be methyl, ethyl, or even higher number of carbon atoms. Carbon groups it may contain like 1 to 90. Okay, and fatty acids can be saturated or unsaturated depending upon double bond. Okay, without double bond, saturated, unsaturated, one or more double bonds. Okay, and we have different examples. Even simple lipid is a glycerol, which is trihydroxypropane. Okay, many lipids will have glycerol and fatty acids, and those are called as triglyceride. Students, you should know what is a glyceride. Okay, glyceride is a lipid in which glycerol is participating to form the ester bond. Okay, they can be even called as fats and oils depending upon their melting point. As we know, oils will have lower melting point and remains at oils in winter. Okay, so now let us come to the next part, that is nucleosides, nucleotides, and nucleic acids. So this part you are much familiar, because in the second year also you have studied in detail what is a nucleoside. Nucleoside is a combination of nitrogen base and sugar. Okay, a pentose sugar is involved there. It can be ribose or deoxyribose. Nitrogen bases can be of purines or pyrimidine type. Okay, like they can be double ring or they can be single ring compounds. Under purines we have two headings, and under pyrimidines we have three. I'm sorry, two examples like adenine and guanine. Under pyrimidines, we have three examples like cytosine, thymine, and uracil. And these will combine, nucleotides will combine to give rise to nucleic acid, that is DNA and RNA. Okay, DNA structure and RNA structure I will not discuss here. Okay, now we have another thing here in this chapter, that is primary and secondary metabolites. So what are these primary metabolites? These are the chemical compounds which have some identifiable functions, and they play known roles or important roles in the physiological process of an organism. Without primary metabolites, the organism is not able to survive. But if you see certain plant, fungal, and microbial cells, there are thousands of compounds other than these primary metabolites. Like you take the examples of alkaloids, flavonoids, rubbers, essential oils, antibiotics, pigments, gums, spices. These come under the category of secondary metabolites, and these are not having any significant role in the physiological process of an organism. If the organism, suppose, does not produce this also, it can survive. But even then, these metabolites are released into the environment as secretory compounds. Okay, and secondary metabolites are not known in animal cells. They are known only in plant, animal, plant, fungal, as well as microbial cells. We have different examples in this table, like alkaloids, terpenoids, toxins, lectins, etc., etc. Now, the concept of metabolism and metabolic basis of living. So, what is metabolism? The sum total of entire anabolic and catabolic reactions that occur in the cell is called metabolism. And organisms follow different pathways, students, like anabolic pathways or synthetic pathways, catabolic pathways or breaking down pathways. And through these pathways, what happens is the organism state which is able to perform work. This is a very important thing. All living organisms exist in steady state, which is characterized by the concentration of each of these metabolites. Living state is a non-equilibrium steady state which is able to perform work. Now we have the one part here in this chapter, that are enzymes. Okay, so what are these enzymes? Enzymes are commonly proteinaceous substances which are capable of catalyzing chemical reaction without being involved in the reaction. They are commonly called biocatalysts. Nucleic acids that behave like enzymes are called as ribozymes. Okay, enzymes. Okay, and you must know that these enzymes are known to lower the activation energy of the reaction. This is very, very important. This graph itself depicts that enzyme lower the activation energy of the reaction. Okay, and by this only, if you see this graph, x and y axis, progress of reaction and potential energy in presence of enzyme and in the absence of enzyme, you can very clearly see the difference. Activation energy with enzyme is very low, whereas without enzyme is high. So the transition state will differ with respect to both of these conditions. Okay, so now moving ahead, factors affecting enzyme activity. Student, there are three important factors what you have studied in your chapter, like pH, temperature, and substrate concentration. pH, you can see that as the pH increases, enzyme activity slowly increases, reaches an optimal value, and then again falls. Okay, so the maximum value is called as optimal pH here. Similarly, there is an optimal temperature where you find the maximum activity. So you see inverted bell-shaped graph here. When you come to the substrate concentration, you see a rectangular hyperbola. Okay, so you can see that enzyme activity increases with respect to increase in substrate concentration up to a certain point, and finally it becomes stable. Okay, there is no more increase in the activity even though you increase the substrate concentration, and this velocity is called as Vmax, maximum velocity. And you can see, you can note one more thing here, Km value, which is very, very important, which is called as Michaelis-Menten constant, and this constant is the substrate concentration. How do you define? This is defined as the substrate concentration when enzyme activity is exactly half of the maximal velocity. Okay, so these are the concepts here to be just recalled. Now, you have also studied a concept that is called as enzyme inhibition. In that, you have studied about competitive inhibition. So, when the inhibitor hits the activity of enzyme, it is known as competitive inhibitor. And that example which is quoted in the textbook is succinate dehydrogenase, which is inhibited by malonate. Malonate is acting as a competitive inhibitor for succinate dehydrogenase because it closely resembles the substrate succinate in structure. And these competitive inhibitors are commonly used in the control of bacterial pathogens. Okay. Now, when you come to the classification of enzymes, as you know, there are six important classes, that is oxidoreductases, transferases, hydrolases, lyases, isomerases, and ligases, and each of these is designed to carry out specific function. Like oxidoreductases will carry out redox reaction. Transferases are those which transfer a group from one substrate to another. Hydrolases will hydrolyze or split the water molecule, and for hydrolysis of different peptide ester bonds, etc., etc. Lyases will remove the groups from substrate. Isomerases carry out interconversion of isomers, and ligases will catalyze the linking together of compounds. Okay, and now we'll come to the very last part of this chapter, that is cofactors. So cofactors are nothing but the non-proteinaceous constituents of an enzyme which make the enzyme more catalytically active. The protein part is called as apoenzyme. As you can recall a reaction, apoenzyme plus coenzyme is equal to holoenzyme. Okay, similarly we have prosthetic group, which are organic compounds, and one very important thing is they are tightly bound to the apoenzyme. For example, the prosthetic group is heme is the prosthetic group there in different enzymes like peroxidase and catalase, which catalyze the breakdown of H2O2, hydrogen peroxide. Heme acts as prosthetic group there. And there are essential chemical components of any coenzymes are vitamins. Like vitamins play a role in the formation or synthesis of coenzyme like NAD, NADP, which contain the vitamin niacin. Okay, so we'll stop this session here itself. Madam.
Yes, ma'am.